Well, hey there, Michael and Morgan. Thanks for joining us here today on the Making Math Moments That Matter podcast. We are so excited to bring you on the show. And guess what? Well, we already know a ton about you because we get to chat with you quite a bit. But before we let people in on a little secret as to why, let's hear a little bit about you. Let's start first with Michael. Why don't you say hello? Where are you coming to us from? And what is your role in math education?
My name is Michael Scott, and we are coming from West Carrollton, Ohio, which is the south west part of Ohio. My role in education, this is my 29th year, 26 years in the classroom, and my third year coaching, 5 through
Nice. Nice. And not too far from us. We joke about that too, is that, your spot in Ohio isn't too far from our spot, just south of Detroit there in Ontario. So Morgan, fill us in. What about you? How long you been teaching, and what's your role as well?
I think this is my 9th year, and it's my 2nd year as a coach. Before this, as a 4th grade math teacher in our district.
I love it. I love it. And friends, we have had the honor and absolute pleasure of not only getting to know you both on a much more personal and professional level through the district improvement program, but we also have been able to essentially see the transformation taking place in the work that you're doing. And both of you complement each other so well. I'm sure it's going to come out in the conversation here.
Yeah.
Before we go any deeper, I'm going to go, we'll start off with Michael here. We need to know, what is your math
He knows it
moment
coming. He knows
that
it's coming.
pops into your mind when we say math class? What is that moment that resonates with you or that you remember from your experience?
Well, yeah. So
we talked about this. We knew it was
yeah, well, yeah, for sure. I've listened to all your podcasts, so there's the so I have a couple of thoughts, but honestly, there's no specific moment. It's just an absorption of years of being taught a memorization way and not really understanding. And so that was kind of driving me to when I became a teacher, to try to develop understanding with kids. And try to break things down. Now, when I became a coach, I realized how much more I needed to learn. So not one specific moment, just there's a lot of combination of moments of
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Michael, when you first started teaching, did you always have that thought as a teacher, thinking like you're saying, I didn't understand it? Like, did you recognize you didn't understand it when you were a student, and then that translated into your teaching moves right away? Because you're like, I gotta like make up for this like lack of like, I didn't really understand it, but I'm now a math teacher.
I did. I recognized right from the get-go, and I recognized that I needed to learn a lot more, understand breaking down the foundational things. So I knew right away in the classroom. Now that took some years of studying and working through things and teaching and trying to help kids with that. So I was always very cognizant of the fact of trying to get kids to understand the why.
I love that.
Right
I
from
love
the
that.
beginning.
And, there's something that we recognized very early in our discussions when we were first connected with you both and your school district. And there was definitely this, you had an awareness of what was going on, and that, you didn't have the arrival syndrome, as I think many of us in education sometimes can be tricked into thinking that, hey, I have arrived, I have the knowledge, I brought, I did the math degree, right? And I think that is one really important piece, which I think has allowed you both to really make some serious gains from a mindset piece, but then also just from a planning piece for your district. Before we go deeper there, though, I want to flip over to Morgan. How about you? Michael came out of the secondary side of things, and Morgan, you're coming from the other end of the spectrum. You were teaching in a grade 4 classroom before coming into this leadership role. What is the math moment that sort of sticks out in your mind when we say math class?
Yep. So I kind of did math and science in college, and I picked math as my capstone class. So it was my last class. I was a senior. I was ready to get out, and I had to do one more math class, and it was 100% tasks. And I really realized, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do math. Like it hit me that I memorized, I did the algorithms, I could follow rules. And then I remember walking in that class, and it was a lot of 7-12 teachers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I hated that class. Like I would always want to skip it. And I would like call my friends who were like business majors and accounting majors, like, you have to do my math homework for me. I had no idea what I was doing. And I think that really, I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so surprised because I had done well in math my whole life until that class.
And it was the entire class, like the whole time through for you. It was like, this is the worst. And this is, and did that translate into, how did that affect you, having that experience and then going into teaching?
I think I realized that I did a whole lot of like naked problems, as you guys call them. I had to expose my kids to more than that because I had no idea what I was doing. It was all of these real life scenarios, and I didn't even know where to start because I had done so many of like, well, divide this by this, and I could do that.
Right.
Those multi-step tasks, I had no idea what I was doing.
That was so me in university. You know, my second year, I think, you guys may remember from my math moment way back when. And in second year university, I went in and I was in an algebra 2 class, and I was completely lost. I had never felt so, down on myself, I think, then the realization that you're like, I don't know what the heck is going on here. And I've never felt this way. So I'm with you there. I've been there. I've been there.
And I'm curious, Morgan, is like thinking back to that teacher in the room, because I think we know, that a teacher makes all the difference to what's happening, in that class. So when you were saying it's teaching through tasks, that made me go like, whoa, because I had the opposite, I think, experience when I was in university. Like I took a class at university, which was a problem solving course. It was all course just on strategies for problem solving. Like the whole course was about Polya's 4 stages in 4-step process. And the teacher really made that class. And what we did every single class was like handed out problems. We worked on problems during the hour we were there together. And then we would take those problems up. That was the whole class. Like it was like a completely different experience to what all of my university classes before that was. But the teacher made such an impact on how that course was delivered because we had to do the work. We had to do all the thinking, and all he did was summarize our thinking. This is before like we weren't standing up vertically around the rooms. We were just working on paper on our desks, but it was fully a thinking math class. And so like I had a completely different experience around how that influenced my thinking going into teaching, because I wanted more thinking like that. Now I wasn't like great at it right out of the gate at all. I spent years, just teaching the same way that we all taught for a long time. But I always remembered that class as a thinking first class. And I did want problem solving to happen. I just didn't think I was doing it every single day like he was. But I'm curious. Tell me about the teacher of this class. Like what was going on that made you like, oh man, I not belong here?
It's funny because I told Mike I was going to say the story, and he asked me the same thing. And I'm trying to think back like 10 years ago. And I don't even really remember what she did. And I swear it's because I was so scared. Like I was like in survival mode. Like I can't say anything because I'll sound, and people will know I don't know what I'm talking about. And that we did, we got in groups of 2 or 3 and we did problems. But I think I sat there silently because I was so like, oh my gosh, I don't even have anything to add. So I'm sure that she probably did summarize, but I think I was like terrified. And so like all I remember is wanting to skip that class and not go there.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Totally. I can relate, my friend. And so those are interesting math moments for sure. And as we dig a little deeper, I would love us to sort of talk a little bit about your journey here, and we'll talk about more of your more recent journey. We'll talk about, sort of you both in your roles as math leaders, and sort of the work that you've been working on over the next couple of years here. So take us back. I know, Morgan, you've been doing it for a couple years in this role. Michael, I think you were in that role a little bit longer, but what did mathematics PD look like or sound like in your district, say 3 or 4 years ago? And how are you seeing, that sort of shifting over time?
Can we take this one?
Sure.
Well, yeah, this is my third year as a coach. And so our math PD was inconsistent. It would be somebody coming in, contracted out, and teaching I don't know, the high school group or the middle school group, some new strategy, content. Well, not really content as much, but some strategy. And then we're, okay, you got that. Then we go into the classroom, okay, try to do this. And there was just no consistency with it, no continuity with it. Back when, when all those years of teaching and having some PD, and maybe it occurred once or twice a year. So that is very, that's fresh in our minds. And we try to now have some consistency, and you guys have helped us with some of our goals and our vision. Try to have some consistency with instructionally in developing content knowledge. So we have continued to do that through, I don't know, it really started last year with it. And we're doing a lot better with this year. My first year, it wasn't as much, but because we were still learning, and we are still learning. So we're doing better with that, with the consistency. Now it's important for the teachers to see that. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to get in your classrooms and try to implement this stuff and help you and co-teach. So
we're the first 2 math coaches, like solely math coaches. Before we came in, we had 2 coaches, but they were supposed to be ELA and math. And we kind of know how that goes. It's a little bit more ELA, and math is kind of put on the back burner. So we're the first 2 people coming in and pushing math every single day, every single week. So that's been a shift for the teachers. We've provided a lot more information, I think, about math than they've ever maybe wanted or thought they needed. But I mean, I think we're doing a pretty good job staying consistent and
well, absolutely.
On what that is.
And you're essentially coming into 2 roles that weren't exactly, math roles as you had articulated. So you're coming in and you're not necessarily, say, taking the torch where maybe somebody left off. You're essentially lighting a torch, and really trying to figure out what that might look like and sound like. What pebbles were you seeing back then? When you came into that role? Yeah, like think about, I don't want to talk about my experience, but I'm envisioning mine. And I just remember feeling very, lost. Like I wasn't sure where to start. Like, take us back to that experience. Maybe we'll shift back to Michael here, and then we'll move on to Morgan. What pebbles were you seeing? And, how were you starting on that journey, being new to those roles and really having roles that hadn't been fully mathematics in the past?
Well, I think just feeling overwhelmed with being a coach and how to be a coach. We didn't really have any training with it, so it's kind of, we've learned as we've gone along. Just where do I start? How do I start with what? Where do I start with what group, what teacher? What instructional strategies? Just there, I realized at the time there was a huge amount of learning that I still needed to do. I thought I was a decent teacher in the classroom, but I was personality-wise, I wanted kids to understand, but there was so much more I had to learn. So that first year was just a lot of learning and trying to get in the classrooms. I look back now and I kind of want to apologize to some of the teachers. We're so much more consistent, and we do have a vision, like the 3-act task. My first year, I had never heard of that. I didn't know of you guys, and that's a whole story in itself. And actually, I'll give a shout out to one of our ELI coaches, Minnie Balster. So she's on the podcast here. She's famous now, but I didn't with podcasts. She didn't even know about podcast, or I didn't know about podcasts really. I mean, I heard of what are they. And she always listened to podcasts, and she got me turned on to them, and I started searching. I found you guys, and I started listening to you. And then I shared that with our curriculum director, Julie, and she found the district partnership.
Mhm.
And so from there, that was really started the ball rolling where we have a focus. 'Cause honestly, that first year was just trying to read and learn and figure things out. And I'm still doing that, but
Yeah.
we definitely have a clear focus as what can help our teachers. I honestly, I had no idea what can really help our teachers. So
Right.
it took some time, and we're still learning that. So
Yeah. I remember those early conversations, and that
you do.
you were
They were
thinking, you know,
awkward.
they were
No.
awkward. You're thinking like you, and what I always appreciated about you know, even those early conversations is that your passion, you know, your passion for, and that
Yeah.
both of you, you know, both of you, your passion for helping, you know, get into classrooms. Like I think you did, like you said, you did that from the start. You probably not having a model to follow,
Yeah.
and getting into classrooms is a really important piece of the work that you're doing, and you know, but not knowing exactly what to do while you're there, or what is the most, you know, impactful moves that you can make. And I remember that you just had that passion. I think that passion got you a long way just because of it. Morgan, what did you what were you experiencing similar pebbles? What did the pebbles look like for you when you were, you know, alongside Michael in this?
Yeah, I think my transition was a little bit easier just because Mike was in there a year before me, so I feel like he like found you guys and had resources to show me.
Mhm.
But I remember not even like it was almost like I didn't know what I didn't know. So I
Right.
remember one of the first times I met with Mike, he was like, content knowledge is a big, we need to focus on that. And I immediately am like, do you think I can't do fourth grade math? Like, what are you talking about? And
What'd you
then
think?
hopefully he thought I could.
Well, can I jump in?
No.
See, this is I am going to. So our very first year, one thing I want to do, like I want to do a book study. Well, what do I do a book study on? I mean, there's a lot of authors I hadn't heard about. I think the first one, my first podcast, I butchered Peter Lillidahl's name. John, you do so many, you probably don't remember that, but you're like, you kind of chuckled out, who is this guy? You know, so you know, but I did a podcast next to Tricks. It was a start. Morgan was in it. And I think in that we would have I would have tasks for them to do. So I was starting to learn a little bit. And we would Zoom, our book studies were Zooming together, and that was Morgan was in that, and that's how I met Morgan. And that was helping to I recommend her too. But I think that I must have said something like that. We need to improve our content knowledge, but that wasn't like towards our, you know, just her or any teachers. I think I still need to continue to improve it. And I think that's one of our goals, consistently improve our content knowledge. So important. And I hear you guys talk about it all the time too. So
yeah, so when
I
he
cut you off,
when he
sorry.
said that, I really was like, does he not think I can do fourth grade math? And then I remember about like 2 months into the job, I like went over to him, and you know how hard this would be for me. I was like, you were right. And he was like, about what? And I'm like, you're right. Like there's so many things. I taught fourth grade math for many, many years. And once you have time and the resources to look things up, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know anything. We always talk about how like when and if we go back to the classroom, like we would be fantastic. We know so many things.
Right.
Like well, fantastic. But we would just have so many new things that you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You know what? I think what we're recognizing in this moment, and you know, everyone in the audience who's listening here to the podcast, we have the solution to fixing math education, and it's let every teacher be an instructional leader for a little while, because you will ultimately learn so much. And that is such an important piece. And you know, for you both, I must say I'm a little jealous that I didn't have as quick of a realization along the journey. You know, like I thought that I had the tools, you know, for a number of years, and it took me longer to come to that realization that, oh my gosh, there is so much we need to know. And you know, sure, teaching grade 4, when we talk about content knowledge, you go, come on, grade 4 math. But really, any educator out there who's teaching grade 8, they're saying, come on, I don't know grade 8 math, or I'm teaching grade 11 math.
I said
Come
that
on,
about
I
high
don't know
school.
grade 11 math,
Yeah,
right?
come
Like
on.
it doesn't matter what the grade level is. There's so much more nuance to it. And it's those nuances that are really important and can really go a long way. So, you know, I'm wondering, when, you know, back then and now, I know this from our discussions, but I feel like you've not only come to recognize some of these pieces around content knowledge, for example, and more recently of this idea of like needing to do the math with teachers, like actually doing a lot of math when you come together. But what would you say is maybe the biggest difference in what it was you were hoping to achieve as a team? And then also like thinking like from a district perspective, like where has that shifted from the beginning of this journey to now? If we were to think about that dream outcome for mathematics, how has that evolved over time over these last, 2 to 3 years?
You want to take that one or you want me to?
I think that the first year we had a lot of big ideas.
Yeah.
I think that we were shooting for the stars almost, and we wanted to do it all at once.
Right.
And I think we quickly realized there's only two of us between a lot of teachers. And what we needed to do was pick the most important things and things we could actually accomplish. So I know we picked, I think, 3 goals, and I think it's been much easier now to kind of look at, okay, is this fitting? We want to do all these cool things, but is this fitting the goal, one of our 3 goals, and how is it doing that? And now the next step, we're looking to how are we going to measure how our goals are, how we're achieving our goals, what's our progress. So that's our next step. So we're excited about that, to see, are the things we're even doing making a difference, or do we need to kind of look at doing some different things?
Yeah, I would just add to that, we've narrowed the focus. Our focus was well, the first year there was no focus, it was just wide open, but we definitely narrowed the focus with your help. And now we're moving to being able to measure properly, because that was one of the conversations we had with John back in our discussion of what do we want to measure and how, and we talked about a continuum with a productive struggle. So, you guys have helped us with just trying to get that focus and make sure the teachers know the goals. Because we definitely did do that the first year, like this is what we're trying to do. And that's been a big push. And I think too, it's like, I have 5 through 12 teachers in Morgan's K through 4, and it is broad. You don't really realize how big it is, and it's how to focus and how to be able to reach every teacher. So that's one of our pebbles for sure.
Right.
We reach every teacher.
Right.
And do it consistently with a consistent message. So
yeah, I love that we, that's been the journey. And I know that, we, it feels like we need to accomplish everything, in our roles. It's we don't want to miss something, you don't want to go, oh, we missed the boat on that. That could have been so much better. Let's bring it in now. Or we're missing out on, tackling this area. But when we focus on too many things, we're really focusing on none. And I love that, you are embracing, the vision process. You've embraced, just being, being selective on the objectives and keeping that focus. Like last summer, it helped you focus on what the next book study was going to be. It was like, which books should we be picking here to focus in on the goals that we want to achieve this year? And I think you guys have done a really great job of staying aligned to the things that really matter in the classroom and putting the work in to make that difference, like getting into classrooms, modeling lessons, working with teachers, all around that very streamlined focus. What would you say has been one of the, biggest realizations around this process that you've kind of been engaging in for the last year or so?
Well, just how much we need to learn and continue to learn. I mean, that's just a no-brainer right there. I think that's important. And I think too, I just being humble and with the teachers and imparting that message to the teachers, because when you go into the classroom to work with teachers, there's there's a fear or an embarrassment, like I don't know enough. And that's one of the things that we both do in the classroom, where we try to make sure that we've even, like you were talking earlier, John, about 4th and 5th grade or 6th grade content. Man, there's so much to dive into that and really understand. And you guys have some great resources with that. So just making sure that we go in the classroom and impart that message to develop that relationship and make the teachers feel more at ease, and try to get them to more accepting of different strategies and of us being in the classroom. And that takes some effort, and it's a process. So
I think too that this process is a lot slower than you might want it.
Yes.
I feel like when I was offered this role, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm gonna come in and do all these things, and
Yep.
then you can't, it's not a fast process, which is okay. And I think just now in year 2, I'm finally realizing that's okay. And small wins are still wins, and we
Yeah.
can't move the needle in one day. So I think that's definitely something that we have realized, and that's okay. I'm gonna keep telling myself that.
You know what, you want to go in there and you want to solve all the world's problems, right? And the tough part is we're constantly flip-flopping between urgency, right? There's students who need the best we can offer them now, and then there's also, as John mentioned, you know, the worry that if we are too urgent, that we may accomplish nothing and actually, you know, sort of stay the same or actually, you know, go backwards. I'm wondering, since you've joined the district improvement program, what would you say has been easier for you in your roles? Maybe we'll start this time with Morgan. Has there been anything since coming into the program? And I don't know if it's a segue or almost building on what you've just said, because I think one of the big pieces that you've taken and you've done very well with is the recognition that you can't solve all the world's problems in a day. But what would you say is easier now that, you know, that you've had that additional support?
I think one of the biggest things is, like you said, there's so many things that come up that feel so urgent, but a lot of times our big goals go to the back burner. Like, I have 2nd grade teachers, they need this. So I think having already scheduled bi-weekly meetings where we have to stop and we have to just talk with you guys and with each other about our goals. I feel like if we didn't have those set in stone, a whole year could go by and we did nothing.
Okay,
So
the worst day every 2 weeks.
Oh
eh?
my
You're like,
gosh.
ah, shoot, we got to meet with those guys.
No, but it makes us stop and really think about, like,
Yes.
okay, are the things we're doing day to day actually working towards our goals? Which I think is important, and I really don't think if we didn't have those times set aside. I mean, sometimes there are days that we don't even see each other because we're all over the place.
Right.
I don't think that we would be constantly checking in. What are we doing? What can we do? How are we measuring this? How are things moving forward?
Yeah, it keeps us grounded, and it's nice to be able to bounce things off of you guys and talk things through, and you guys are like in the classroom too, you just don't give us the answer. So you come on now, sometimes we just tell us.
Yeah.
So, but you're making us problem solve and, you know,
Yeah.
productive struggle, right? So I think that's very helpful to every 2 weeks come in and
Right.
this is what's going on, give us some ideas, you know, and you just have us kind of talk things through. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah,
So,
it's like there's a compass that kind of just brings you back in line, and we're pointing
Yes.
north. It's like, are we pointing north? No, we're pointing southeast. It's like, bring it back north, bring it back north, because we can, you know, if we don't continually refocus on a regular basis, the nature of the job will take us off course. It just will,
Right.
you know,
Especially since, you know, even though like the compass might start pointing, you know, southwest or wherever it's pointing,
yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
it's still good stuff. Like, it's
Yeah,
not that,
yeah.
you know, the stuff that we want to do, that we get pulled to do isn't, you know,
Supportive.
worth doing.
Yeah.
It's just that, oh shoot, it's a rabbit hole, right? Which is really, really tough. So great to see that you're recognizing it.
What if you had to give, you know, one big kind of takeaway or one big thought or piece of advice to another district leader like yourself, a math coach, math coordinator in their district? They're, you know, maybe they're spinning their wheels right now, or maybe they're wondering, like, what is that first move that I should make? What would you say to them?
Well, I have someone that you can bounce ideas with off and talk things through. And if you don't have someone to work with, like Morgan and I talk a lot about things, and then we have you guys too. But if you don't have either of those, you know, seek out another district,
Right.
talk to somebody to help problem solve and ask them what they're doing, and continue to learn, keep reading, keep doing courses and podcasts. So I've just learned so much doing those things and being exposed to other things. And actually it's kind of overwhelming a little bit because then I just want to read everything and I
Right.
don't have so much time. So that would be my advice.
I love it. How about
I
Morgan?
think, like Mike said, hopefully you have someone to talk to. It's huge that we have each other. But coming up with like 2 or 3 set goals and making sure that your actions are following one of those. And then I think being really transparent with the teachers about goals. I remember being in the classroom and I'd hear something and I'm like, I didn't even know that was a goal. So making sure that your teachers know the goals and are a part of maybe even coming up with that. We let our math leadership team come up with those together, so we're all accountable, but being really transparent with the teachers and making sure that we're all on the exact same page, because they're the ones doing the really hard work.
I love it. I love it. Those are some great ideas. And, in hearing what both of you've articulated there, when it comes to the idea of learning, when we don't have goals, we might still be doing a lot of learning. And I know I've been guilty of this, where you do all the learning, but that almost creates more and more rabbit holes. But if I have those goals set, if I have that compass, as John, as you've articulated, and I know what my true north is, I can still learn, and we can put things on the roadmap, but we still go, okay, we're still on this path. Like, what learning is going to help me with these pieces now? And then what's other learning that, we might need to come back to, we might need to explore a little differently, or maybe it's going to help me refine some of those goals in the future. So I love that. Those are some great takeaways. And, what I'm hearing from you both is, I hear this openness, this not only openness to learning, but also the acceptance that when we get into leadership roles, be it coordinators, coaches, be it superintendents, directors, principals, these are really difficult roles, because you get put into the role, and in a way we put this on ourselves, that we're just supposed to sort of know what to do. And the reality is like you're saying, collaborating with others can be really helpful, but then also giving yourselves permission to, find that resource, that tool, that support that you need. So good on you both for doing that as well. Any final thoughts here before we wrap up? I want to say thank you to both of you for being on the show, for sharing. And any final thoughts here before we wrap up for today?
Well, I just want to thank you guys for helping us. You guys have been very patient and very helpful. We appreciate the help. And I would just say to everybody else, the coaches, whoever's working with teachers, give yourself grace. Make mistakes, and that's okay. You'll learn. That's part of the process. So
awesome. Morgan, anything to add there?
I feel like Mike took everything.
He's always taking the credit, isn't he?
Yeah. We really appreciate you guys. We'll be talking and we'll be like, well, send that to John and Kyle. They'll know the answer, and you guys usually do. So it's nice to kind of have that connection that we have with you guys. And
it is.
Yeah, it's been really nice. I feel like we finally have a direction. I think we're moving forward. So the best is yet to come.
Love it.
That's good.
That's good.
Thanks.
Like
Thanks you two for joining us here, and say hi to Julie for us. And we'll see you soon. I think we got a meeting in the books next week, so we'll talk then. And enjoy the rest of your day, and keep on plugging away.
Keep on doing the work, my friends.